Namaste, everyone. Welcome. And it's Happy New Year, of course, and Happy Kalpataru Day from January 1st. And then for those of you who joined the Arati, you could see that today was a very special day associated with Holy Mother. Today is actually her traditional birthday, and the photos that we showed today are from what Bellarmine looked like over the last 24 hours. Of course, the day begins ahead of us over there in India. And the photos are beautiful. It's like walking, uh, taking a pilgrimage at Bellarmine on Holy Mother's Jayanti. And anyone who would like to see a little bit more of that, just stay after class and I'll share my screen and show you. So it's very, very colorful, beautiful, and devotional. You get to see the brahmacharis and the swamis all facing the shrines and what's going on with Holy Mother's own temple. Okay, so here we are. Let me pull up some things here so that we can begin. Welcome to new people and welcome to old friends and students, etc. Um, for those of you who are brand new, the course of study that we're embarked upon, is based upon all these different methods and teachings that are enumerated that appear throughout the Sanatana Dharma of India. Sanatana Dharma means the perennial truth or the eternal religion, and they cross over different philosophical and religious systems. And as many of you have heard before, the genesis of Babaji's Footfalls of the Indian Rishis book was actually the sword of the goddess and uh, obstacles and methods in spiritual life. And he had a chapter. There's so many different chapters for all those different teachings. And then at one point he decided to make a stotram, I guess you would call it, a hymn, poem. I'm not sure what we would call it. I like to think of it as a stotram in Sanskrit terms, but it's written in English. And he placed 2 to 4 systems in every single verse, and there's 58 verses. And we're now working our way through verse number 8. And one of the things that this teaching affords us is an overall view and basic understanding of the almost so much of the Sanatana Dharma. And what it also means is that every week is sure to be something different than the week before. So whether we move through it quickly or slowly, it's got so much variety to it, and all of it helpful and pertinent to our spiritual lives. So let me share my screen, and we'll just take a look at the last few that we've been working on. So the poet says, moving about in wonder, the threefold miseries next revealed their various pitfalls to me. But the ultra-cosmic Trinity came forth and saved me as I performed the 3 alluring offerings. You know, I think at this point, this has been one of my very favorite verses. And just for those who weren't part of those classes, the threefold miseries are those that arise from within, from without, and from on high. And we read about them in the Bhagavad Gita. It comes up in many different places. But these threefold miseries are what the illumined being transcends, gets beyond them. And they're all very much connected to individual karma. but also to a certain extent collective karma. And you can't exactly separate those two. But there is a difference. And, for example, 9/11 was big collective karma, but it was individual karma as well that put one in the way of it. So um, and these are statements that are neutral. They're not value laden. And that's one of the beautiful things about these teachings in India is that we look at things in terms of, to use a Buddhist expression, is it, is it, oh, I just lost it. Is it skillful means or is it not skillful means? That's the way they talk about it. And we do basically the same things. We look at it as karma, and it's a neutral thing, but that doesn't mean it doesn't cause a great deal of misery when it's negative karma. So that's what the threefold misery is concerned. But the ultracosmic trinity relates very much to verse 8 that we're studying, and it has to do with Ishvara, the personal, the Lord of the universe, the mother of the universe, the great cosmic mind, the ultimate ego of absolutely pure sattvic beneficence, the repository of all divine qualities. That's Ishvara or Ishvari. And then there's Avatar, when that reality descends and takes human form. And then there's the Ishtam. And the Ishtam is our chosen ideal. And for many beings throughout the planet, the Ishtam is a divine incarnation, an avatar, but not always. The Ishtam is what one is the connection between the individual and the absolute reality. It's that personal relationship that opens the door. As Sri Ramakrishna said, that imagine that there's a huge expanse before you, a huge field, a prairie, and you can't see the whole thing because there's a wall in front of you and it's blocking your view. But as you get closer, you see that there's a hole in that wall and you can see a little bit of what's on the other side. So you get closer and closer. Now that hole stands for the Ishtam, also the divine incarnation. And the closer you get, the more of the infinite expanse on the other side that can be seen. And in the final analysis, one slips through that hole, and all there is that infinite expanse. So that's the ultracosmic trinity: Ishvara, Avatar, and the Ishtam. And how did he get close to them, and they came and saved him? Because he made a connection, or she made a connection to them through worship, through devotional singing, through arati. So these are called the three alluring offerings: worship, arati, and divine singing, devotional singing. So then this vision opened new eyes, and I looked out at humanity and I saw the four conditions of embodied beings. Compassionately noting all who suffer, I gratefully perceived the four kinds of virtuous aspirants and joined them. So the four conditions of embodied beings are Jiva Koti, which is a state of emancipation. Jiva is the apparently individual soul, and Koti, anyway, what it means is that they've had enlightenment. And then there's Ishvara Kotis, who are parts of Ishvara, Jivan Muktas, who are living liberated, living in a design state. And I think there's one more, and it escapes me. And then the four kinds of virtuous aspirants are those who are, we see this in the Bhagavad Gita, these are those beings who uh, are devotees of God, but they're calling on God because of they need relief from suffering. And another kind of devotee of God who wants to earn wealth dharmically and use it for good causes. Another kind of devotee who seeks divine knowledge. And then the wise one, as Sri Krishna puts it, who loves God for God's sake, who just loves God. So that's what we did up to verse 8. And so we've done most of verse 8. Shortly thereafter, I met my incomparable Guru. And it often works this way. When we begin to, through our own efforts, step on the spiritual path and strive by whatever means are available to us, and we are sincerely yearning for God, then a teacher appears. So he did those 3 alluring offerings. He made a commitment to becoming, to joining the 4 kinds of virtuous aspirants. He's been performing worship, divine singing, divine ritual. So shortly thereafter, he met her incomparable Guru, who described the 3 designations of aspirants. And that's as far as we got. Well, we got partway into the next one. So the 3 designations of aspirants, again, now these are aspirants. These are devotees, not ordinary people who are just concerned with the world. So those aspirants who still have animalistic tendencies, those who are of heroic temperament, they've learned to control their desires and control their senses and control their mind. They're still very much in their sadhana phase. And then the divine, who have transcended the pairs of opposites and are established as they say in Tantra, in the divine mood. Now this is a teaching that comes out of Tantra. The kinds of sadhana that these 3 kinds of beings engage in, these kinds of aspirants, are specific to the state that they are currently at. And so that needs to be said. So last week, we began the discussion of the necessary requisites. I think I made a typo here. It's actually not prerequisites, but requisites to spiritual life. And that consists of guru, initiation, and mantra. Last week, we talked in depth, or last time, we spoke in depth about the guru. What are the qualifications of the teacher? And we also added in, what are the qualifications of the student? Because that's also very important. Just like is said in the Katha Upanishad, if the teacher is wonderful and the student is clever, then there's a very amazing thing that can happen in that case. Great will be the enlightenment. So we talked in depth about that, and if anyone would like to see that class, I can just email me or text me. Don't text me, I don't have a phone right now, but email me and I'll send you the link. So let's go ahead and move forward into initiation. We did talk a little bit about initiation, and we're going to spend most of our time, I hope, on mantra. But I want to review with some quotes from Holy Mother, something that we did last time with reference to initiation. So initiation is where one is formally established in the spiritual path. One has accepted a teacher, the teacher has accepted you. These 2 things are important. And in that acceptance of the teacher, one is vowing to follow the instructions and to move forward to the best of one's ability in spiritual life and follow instructions. That means at the time of initiation, one is generally given a mantra and given a practice and given some pointers in meditation. Now, this isn't the end of it. The student should stay very closely connected to the teacher, because as one begins into these practices and for a long time afterwards, changes are happening in the mind, in the karma, in the experiences, and these, um, should be discussed with the teacher. Sometimes it will seem straightforward, those experiences. Other times, maybe one is thrown out of their groove, as they say. And so it's important to not just go it along. The teacher is our companion in spiritual life. They have walked ahead of us on the path and are qualified to guide us. So um, don't don't ignore that. Take advantage of it. That's why the teacher is there. So something we didn't talk about, let me do that first, is the different kinds of initiation. So most of us have the wonderful benefit of receiving initiation with a mantra. And so we call that guru and that kind of initiation, mantra guru and mantra initiation, mantra diksha. It's also called anava. And in this chapter that Babaji wrote on these three requisites of spiritual life, he had this to say about the anava initiation. The anava initiation is first, actuated by the guru, who bestows the sacred mantra upon the disciple in sacred ceremony. This most basic of rituals and initiations is perfectly suited for the sadhika, that's the spiritual practitioner, who is just entering formal spiritual life after some practice on their own. It is also meant for those who are steadily making progress and need a boost along the way for impetus. So that's the most basic kind of initiation that we get, and it's extremely important. There are two other kinds of initiation, which most of us will never receive because because it happens with extremely illumined beings, such as a divine incarnation and and Ishvara Kotis, who are parts of Ishvara. So this one is called a Shakta initiation, Shakta Diksha. It's a very powerful infusion of spirituality given by a realized soul to those who are either prepared for such intensity or are fortunate to be lifted up by such a being. I have to make an aside here. There are teachers out there who have powers and they engage in Shakta initiation, so they say. And not all of them have enough power behind them and enough realization behind them to know who is truly ready for that infusion of energy. And if that's the case, then the infusion is not entirely pure. So we have known some people who were negatively affected by that kind of initiation. But when you're with an Ishvara Koti, like the direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, or highly realized beings, or if you had the great good fortune to be initiated by a divine incarnation, it's a totally different thing. So the Shambhavi is the highest, most rare and precious. In the Shambhava initiation, It is bestowed by the greatest world teachers who by a mere touch or thought can transform an aspirant into a realized saint or sage. These three types of gurus and their respective initiations are said to allow for the realization of the Atman in meditation. So on Kalpataru Day, that was January 1st, on Monday, we commemorate a wonderful festival of Shambhava initiation that Sri Ramakrishna uh, blessed the householder devotees with on that day. And um, you can read about it online. But basically, he was it was his last year on this earth, and he was suffering from his body was suffering from cancer, but he was feeling better that day, and he took a walk out into the grounds, and uh, he turned to one of the householder devotees there and said, "What is it that makes you call this," referring to himself? He never said me. So what that makes you refer to this as a divine incarnation? And Girish did a full point prostration in front of him and said, "What can I say that even the Vedas are unable to express? As much as they try, they have been unable to express this." And Sri Ramakrishna went into this, you can call it a bhava samadhi, this state of, we refer to it as the kalpatar, the wish-fulfilling tree, but it's really more pertinent, more authentic to call it the the freedom from fear tree. And he said, "What can I say to you all?" And the householder devotees were all there. He said, "May your consciousness be illumined." And they all rushed towards him, and one by one he touched them. And there were one or two that he said, "Oh, you need to wait." See, he knew they weren't ready. So he said, "You'll have to wait a little bit." But all these others, they received the highest spiritual experience that they had the capacity to absorb. And it was with them for days. And they never forgot it. And it transformed them in marvelous ways. So let me close this with a quote by Swami Shivananda. Swami Shivananda was a direct disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, came to him as a teenager, and he described something that is very much a part of this Shambhavi transmission. "Another day, when I was meditating in the Panchavati Grove, my concentration became very deep. The master," that's Sri Ramakrishna, "the master came towards me from the pine grove, and as soon as he looked at me, I burst into tears. The master stood still. I felt something creeping up inside my chest, and I was overcome by a fit of shaking. The master said that the crying was not insignificant. It was a type of ecstasy. I then followed him to his room, where he gave me something to eat. The awakening of the Kundalini was an easy matter for him. He could do this even without a touch, but by a mere look. And in fact, he could do it from a distance. He could send those experiences merely by thinking of somebody who was out of sight. So, and then just quickly, because I have it up here to show, this Shambhavi initiation, in the case of Sri Ramakrishna and great beings like him, means that there's all these different kinds of initiation, and we've talked about them. And this is a picture drawn by a devotee of these different kinds of initiations. So there's Sankalpa Diksha, by thought or will. There's Chakshu Diksha, by a glance or a look. Hasta Diksha, by the hand on the head. Vak Diksha, by a word or an utterance, just like, by a glance. That's what Swami Shivananda, as a boy, experienced. by a word or an utterance is vakdiksha. Sparshadiksha, by a touch to the heart or body. So you might remember Sri Ramakrishna touching Naren and him going into deep samadhi so that Sri Ramakrishna could examine him and make sure he was who he thought he was, that he brought with him to this plane. And you know, all of these Holy Mother did too. And if you read the books of Holy Mother, um, especially Sri Sharada Devi and her divine play, written by Swami Chaitanananda, and another book called The Compassionate Mother, you'll see that she did all of these as well. Anyway, Hata Diksha, by touching the Guru's feet, Shaktipat Diksha, transferring subtle power, Svapna Diksha, by transmission in a dream. This happens to be uh, one of the early heads of the Swamis of the San Francisco Vedanta Society, Swami Ashokananda, received initiation by Swami Vivekananda in a dream. That's one example. But others, many devotees in the time of Holy Mother, received initiation in a dream and then sought her out to get it tangibly as well. So, wanted to show that. So, let's move on to mantra. So I've got something very interesting for us. In fact, I hope I can get through all of it, but we'll see. So mantra is something that in SRV, Babaji talks about a lot. And actually throughout our lineage, mantra is spoken of a lot. It's a very, very powerful practice. And in the beginning, um, we think of it like protection, but there's so much hidden in that mantra, and that's going to be where we go. So what is a mantra? Here's some different quotes from the chapter that I mentioned that Babaji wrote out of a manuscript. It is a sacred formula that vibrates in accordance with the deity it symbolizes and the aspect of attainment that it wants to accomplish. So like in the case of Mother Mantra, generally these are mantras of transformation, transcendence. Yeah. So this idea of vibration, let's keep holding that thought. Then Swami Shraddhananda, whose chapter on mantra yoga I'll be sharing shortly. He says, mantra yoga is the spiritual practice that unites the individual with God through the repetition of a mantra. And the practice of mantra, and this includes the sacred Bijam Om, A-U-M or O-M, is all based on this idea that's Vedic in nature, that the name and that which the name signifies are one and the same. The name and its meaning cannot be separated. So the mantra is one with God. This knowledge is part of the knowledge of Shabda Brahman, God as sound. So this is a very extremely deep topic. And if we take this into our minds as we, especially as beginners, if any of us who are beginners with the mantra in our early years of practicing with the mantra, to know that that mantra and the deity that it represents are one and the same. It's as if I used to think of it in the very beginning. Oh, the mantra is like the address of the deity. But even that has too much separation to it. But this is something that opens up. So in this, so let's take a look at another chart that Babaji put together for us that expresses some of this. And it will be like an introduction to that sharing on mantra yoga. So mantra is the science of cosmic sound. Wait a minute, did I share this? No, not properly. Here we go. And I'm using two screens. That's why my face is turned away. Sorry. Okay, mantra is the science of cosmic sound. Through the science of mantra, the Kundalini will awaken. Repetition of God's name will lead to the goal. Those are the words of Holy Mother. So, it is Vedic in origin, as I said earlier. The rishis of ancient Vedic times practiced mantra and other austerities to realize God. So that's the supreme purpose of a mantra. Taking a mantra to develop powers of various kinds is secondary. It doesn't lead to liberation. But mantra for the realization of God, that will lead us to liberation, to realization of God. It is unique among spiritual practices. Such is the power of the mantra that in addition to the mind, it also purifies the body. So Babaji has given those stories. But let's just say that when we do mantra, like on our hands, this is purifying the body. Having initiation purifies the body. It's sort of like being given a passport that will not only let you into the spiritual circles of your particular tradition, but frankly, it will, if you are of a universal mind, it will let you into other traditions as well, because there's a purification that's taken place. It is a universal mode of practice. People in other countries are also repeating and doing recitation of the Lord's holy names. It is effective as repetition. And here's Holy Mother. Even if your mind does not awaken, you must repeat the mantra thousands of times. And I would guess that this particular quote is located somewhere near a metaphor that she used, that, even though it's best to be fully concentrated on the mantra, we must have collectedness of mind in all that we do, as she says. But repeat it. And, it's like whether you have your bathing suit on or you're fully clothed, if you fall into the pool, you're going to get wet. So it's like that. So you can at least repeat the mantra and keep bringing your mind back to collectedness. It originates in the Bodhi mind, the awakened mind. After attaining true wisdom, one sees that gods and deities are all Maya. It provides protection during practice. God's name protects. Instead of losing a leg, one might merely suffer a thorn of the foot. This also has to do when we take the name of God, when we repeat the mantra, as Holy Mother says, with utmost love, sincerity, and surrender. This act of surrender and the rest of it is what, lightens our karma, as that quote shares. It clears the subconscious mind. This is really, really important. This cannot be underemphasized. And the quote here is, man becomes pure and the mind still by repeating the mantra of God. It's through spiritual practices we learn in the yoga system that we begin to deal with the unconscious thoughts of the mind. And what the mantra does is to neutralize those thoughts, to bring sattva into the picture. And we may not see this happening. We won't see it for a long time. And this is why Holy Mother would say, you know, if you fall asleep on the train, you don't see the scenery go by. But when you arrive at your destination, you know, you're in a completely different place. So we have to have faith in the mantra and the power of it. So then here's an important thing. When the teacher gives us the mantra and speaks it in our ear, this is the first quarter of it. The purpose of initiation is to try to realize God through sincere effort. So we have been given the Vaikari portion, the audible portion, but there's 3 more portions that we're going to unwrap with our love, with our sincerity, with our surrender, with our concentration. And it's the deity's hidden form here. We talk of it as Mother's divine form. All forms emanate out of the Divine Mother. When a pure soul repeats the mantra, the holy name bubbles up from within. And I used to see that with Lex, the founder of our association. So mantras are associated with deities and are innumerable. And when we have selected, or our teacher has selected, a deity for us to be our chosen ideal, then that becomes the supreme Ishvara. That becomes the Ishvara or Ishvari. That all the other deities are part of that. And so whatever deity it was, we've now taken its Ishvara aspect. And so that's why the mantra that is repeated, no matter what the deity, who the deity is, if it's repeated as God itself, as representing the one divine reality, then and our ideal is, our goal is to realize God, then it will take us there. Okay, I think we're ready now for this. So this, oops, let me share my screen again. Oh no, I don't need to. So at one of our SRV Wisdom, that's our online ashram, one of our fellowship meetings, where we all share what it is we're studying about, one of our students, Chaitanya Jyoti, who's here right now, he was studying this book. He'd been reading in this. And I read this book a long time ago, and I hadn't really thought about it in a long time. And in it is a number of chapters all on mantra. And so he talked a little bit about that. So I went back and reread most of them, and it was, you know, what to say. It really, it just gave fresh inspiration to the whole practice. And so one of the chapters is on mantra yoga. I recommend everybody read this, and if you didn't see it, it's called Seeing God Everywhere. So now we're going to go through this. So let's begin with a quote from Sri Ramakrishna. Japa, that's repetition of the mantra. Sri Ramakrishna says, Japa means silently repeating God's name in solitude. When you chant his name with single-minded devotion, you can see God's form and realize him. Suppose there is a piece of timber sunk in the water of the Ganges and fastened with a chain to the bank. You proceed link by link, holding to the chain, and you dive into the water and follow the chain, link by link. Finally, you are able to reach the timber. In the same way, By repeating God's name, you become absorbed in Him and finally realize Him. So step one, okay, so prior to that, you've been initiated, you have a mantra. Repeat the holy name with great faith in its efficacy. This is really important. We have to cultivate this faith in the holy name. Most of us here in the West do not automatically, we don't have a samskara generally for faith in the name of God as a path. So we're going to have to cultivate that. So we should have faith in our teacher and therefore faith in what the teacher gives us as a mantra and an instruction. So repeat the holy name with great faith in its efficacy. The mantra is one with the ideal it names, with the chosen ideal it names. So we have to remind ourselves of that again and again. One of the ways we can do this is to remember that countless beings through millennia have realized God through this method. So if doubt raises its head, just remind yourself of that. Am I so different from those others? No, if they did it, I can do it. Next, or as part of that step one, keep in mind the mantra is connected with the power of divine consciousness. This is very important, and this is one of the ways that Swami Shraddhananda keeps bringing up, that it is connected to the power of divine consciousness, the mantra. Further down, if we make it tonight, we will see that it is divine consciousness, capital D, capital C. But for now, think that the holy name is creating spiritual vibrations in the psychophysical system. So when we speak a word out loud, obviously it's creating vibrations. When we say it silently, it's creating inner vibrations. So a mantra is pure sattva, is one way of thinking about it. So as we repeat the holy name, it is creating spiritual vibrations in our body, in our energy of prana, in our mind, in our psychic prana. So sometimes we have to hear about this first, and then we can recognize it, okay? So first hearing, then seeing or experiencing. The next step, he says, is merging the mantra vibration into the movement of the life force, the prana. We are to consciously supply or direct the mantra to the prana. As this occurs, one experiences that the movement of prana itself is mantra repetition. So this isn't too hard to consider. Many of us, I'm sure, who've been practicing mantra for some time have probably brought it with our breath. You know, you breathe in the mantra, you breathe out the mantra. So that's natural. But that's only one of the 5 pranas that this prana refers to. There's also the prana responsible for the beating of the heart. There's the prana responsible for the digestion of food, for the movement of energy throughout the body, for the downward movement. So if we consciously supply the prana, the mantra to the prana, then we are bringing consciousness into this action. We're bringing, even before that, we're bringing the power of sattva into it. So every action then of the prana becomes vibration of the mantra. This is not going to happen overnight. This is something we have to work with. Swami Shraddhananda says that what is achieved via pranayama in the yoga systems is more fully achieved in this stage of mantra yoga, right? And so think about it. You're breathing the mantra, you're concentrating on the form of the ishtam with the mantra, you're convincing yourself and then experiencing over time this vibration of the psychophysical being in tune with the mantra, which is connected to divine consciousness. So in the book Eternal Companion, which is the biography of Swami Brahmananda, who was the first president of the Ramakrishna order and who was the spiritual son of Sri Ramakrishna, mind-born son of Sri Ramakrishna. He was once talking to students. Students had come to him for questioning, and they said they asked him about practicing pranayama, and the Swami said to them, "No, don't do pranayama, do japa. It's so much safer." And so I think that Swami Shraddhananda here has broken down what's going on and why this practice of the repetition of the mantra of japa is just as effective and more so without any of the dangers. So as we move along in that stage of japa, great harmony descends into the prana. Harmony, sattva. Under this influence, if repetition of the mantra is then directed to the 5 external senses, and when I say external, I'm talking about the ears that we see, the ears on our body, the eyes, the nostrils, the tongue, the skin, they become purified. Okay, we're directing the repetition of the mantra to the external senses, which are those organs in connection with the sense objects. Okay, they become purified through this practice, along with the internal sense perceptions, the actual hearing, which is all done in the mind. The actual hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting, touching, the real aspect of it is done in the mind. And so these become purified through this process. Now think about what Holy Mother told us. She said, these disciplines, spiritual disciplines, including and especially japa, cut asunder the bonds of past karma and subdue the outgoing tendencies of the sense organs. So by supplying the mantra, which is connected to divine consciousness, which is identical with the ishtam, which is eternal, infinite, and absolutely satisfying the deeper we go into it, not subject to time, space, and causation. When we do that, then the senses are naturally going to be purified and easier to control. So distraction becomes less. Remember, we're doing all of this, as Holy Mother has told us, with utmost love, sincerity, and surrender. Then the Swami goes on. He says, organs of action can be purified this way too. So our handling of things, our reaching of things, our walking towards things, our speaking, etc., they can be purified this way too. So he says, do japa while engaged in actions, such as sweeping, doing the dishes, work that doesn't take and require, full concentration, like surgery, for instance. We have to use our common sense. But for all the different things, going up to the surgical room, we could be doing the mantra, and I hope we are. all those different things, then we can do japa while engaged in the appropriate actions. And as we do, the corresponding organs of action undergo inner transformation. And the aspirant feels a spiritual vibration in their movement. So the next stage, so that was like 6, 7 different stages, and I know we're coming up on the end here. The next stage is supplying the mantra to the mental waves. So what have we done through all of this so far? We've been working with the mind, but harmonizing and purifying the body and the prana and the senses, all 10 of them. So now, throughout all of that, maybe we've had a hard time with still different thoughts rising up and interfering with our concentration on the mantra. So now that we've got this harmony in body and prana and in the senses, we're going to bring it to our mental waves. So supply the mantra to the mental waves. Sri Krishna tells Arjuna that the restless, uncontrollable mind can be controlled by abhyasa yoga, constant practice. And here, out of that chapter, the Swami says, the practice of mantra yoga in this context communicates the great power of the holy name with faith and love for the mental waves, the thought vibrations, the chittavrittis. The distractions of the mind naturally become calm by the divine influence inherent in the mantra. The divine influence inherent in the mantra. And isn't this what Holy Mother said? She said, people come to me and they complain that they're distracted, that they can't concentrate, that they can't meditate. And I say, well, repeat the mantra. Can you have that distraction? Can you remain suffering all the time if you repeat the mantra? And then she would say, I used to repeat the mantra hundreds of thousands of times a day. So we have to work at it. We have to remember it at all times possible. So the next step, when the body, senses, prana, and mind are all infused with sattva by this practice of japa, then it is time to purify the objects and the phenomena outside of ourselves. And he says this can and should be done. And when I was thinking about this today, it reminded me of that quote of Holy Mother's when we were talking about fault finding during the seminar over the weekend, where Holy Mother says that first we make our own mind impure, and then we see impurity. So this practice of japa in all the different ways that is being discussed here is like doing the opposite. We're making our minds pure so that we see purity all around us. And he gives this example. I'm quoting the Swami again. The endless sky above, according to our normal vision, is material. But when you look at the sky and connect it with the divine through the inner repetition of the mantra, the material space will change its appearance. The goal of the mantra, divine consciousness, will be peeping from the sky. The sky will appear to be a shawl on the cosmic body of God. Think about it. The whole sky becomes, we talk about Mother Kali as Digambari, that's clothed in space. So the sky is the clothing of the cosmic body of the divine being. In a similar manner, then, we can look at the moon, sun, the stars, the trees, flowers, streams, forests, and living beings. All of these endless segments of the universe can be purified by the mantra and be experienced as parts of the cosmic body of Satchidananda. The next stage of mantra yoga transcends the need to direct the mantra internally or externally. That's a very powerful statement, isn't it? The next stage of mantra transcends the need to direct the mantra internally or externally. One's understanding that the mantra is identical with the Ishtam strengthens at this point. It intensifies. The chosen ideals form, or the impersonal idea of God that's associated with your mantra, should be present always in the mind. And that's part of the practice too. As we say the mantra, we are looking within, in the heart, upon the chosen ideal. We've composed it out of consciousness. And if we have a formless, impersonal idea of God, we're holding that idea within our heart and mind. As this ripens, mantra and ishtam increasingly unify. Isn't that beautiful? They say you can only concentrate on one thing at a time, but these things are going quickly, one to the other, one to the other. And finally, they become increasingly unified, resulting in the awakening of mantra chaitanya, the divine consciousness implied in the mantra. That word is mantra chaitanya. And I'm pausing here because there's a beautiful chart that we have, that Babaji created, that I want to do at the end of this, but we're not going to have time. So maybe we should stop right here. That this is, that we've reached this, that this is where we're headed in our practice, is where the mantra is known to be identical with the Ishtam, and the mantra consciousness, the divine consciousness, awakens. Amazing things happen after that. And I'm going to close this class.
Can I just share one thing?
Sure, go ahead.
I've been having an amazing experience with mantra recently. For years, it's like I thought of it as trying to contact the Ishta. And lately, it feels like it's the Ishta trying to contact me through the mantra. It's like the mantra is a gift from the deity. And it's like, it's almost like knocking on the door, like, hi, we're here. It's opposed to this trying to reach. It's like, it's more of a being reached by the sound. So
yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Well, that really does bring us to the end. Instead of closing with a prayer, I want to close with a little bit of music. But anyone who needs or wants to leave the class can just go ahead. So let me share a screen. In fact, let me bring up that chart that we will actually look at next time, because I have to share a chart in order to share the music. And music, and almost there. Just give me a moment here. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Namaste.
ইচ্ছা হয় তোর যে আচারি গুরু ডাক মহামন্ত্র দিবানিশি চাপ করে মন বলি পাজকালি ইচ্ছা হয় তোর যে আচারি গুরু ডাক মহামন্ত্র দিবানিশি চাপ করে মন বলি পাজকালি
mindful mind, meditate on the mystery of Kali, using any method of worship you please, or simply breathe day and night her holy name as the living seed of transforming power planted by the teacher in your heart. Consider the act of lying down to sleep as devoted offering of yourself to her, and allow your dreams to become radiant meditations on the Divine Mother of the universe. As you wander through countryside or city, feel that you are moving through Mother Kali. All sounds that you hear are her natural mantras, repeating spontaneously as the entire world worships her. Goddess Kali constitutes the letters of every alphabet, and each letter secretly bears the flower of her name. The singer of this song is overwhelmed and cries, "Wonderful, wonderful! The Divine Mother exists fully through every living creature." O wandering poet, whatever food or drink you receive, offer as oblation into the sacrificial fire of your body, and meditate intensely on her encompassing reality.